All right. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, Simulation Talk 203. Right, I don't think anyone is here, so we'll wait. We will wait. How are everybody doing? What's up, Ali? Ebony, how are you? Legal Superhero T. Yeah, Lani or Yani. Guru Augie's in the house. Fantastic. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Oh, my hair's getting crazy. Gonna get a haircut. Gonna get a haircut soon. I'm doing really good. Thank you for asking. Aside from this weird cough just now. Thank you for the love, NYX. What's up, LP? Here we go. Okay. What a lovely evening. Spend some fun time. Hey, Lindsay. Oh, is that your... Oh, I recognize your pump. Good to have you. Good boy. Relax. Okay, I think we can slowly jump in. Casey, how are you, my brother? So hot. Oh, one thing I wanted to check. 1 second. I forgot to check this. TikTok, don't go anywhere. Let's see. I want to check my library. Oh, how could I forget? Yeah, it was because yesterday somebody asked me what is some of my most influential books. I'm actually kind of blown away that I didn't even think of this. I just had to look at my library. But okay, so let's see. Yeah, okay. We're back. TikTok. I just had to check my library of books because yesterday somebody asked me what are my most influential books, and I am kind of blown away that I actually forgot one of the main ones. So The Beginning of Infinity is definitely one at the top, and then The Hitchhiker Guide to the Galaxy series is definitely one of the most influential in all the ways, in terms of depth, philosophy, profundity of life. What?
I'm just holding my razor like a pencil.
Oh my god. Cosmo is out of control. What's up, Chris? Another one I really like is Feynman's autobiography. Surely You're Joking, Mr. Feynman. That's a really, really nice one. Cosmo, come here. Come here. This is good practice because we're going to have to... This has to be eliminated before. Cosmo is going to get trained in a couple of days. That's very exciting. Chris, so good to have you with us, LP. What is up with my throat? Every time I start a live, maybe it's chocolate. And then we have to chop the boy's balls. That's what happens. It's crazy. It's getting crazy. What are you doing, cuz? Hey, babe, you might need to take him alone because he might need to. Yeah, he's like going ape shit. Yeah, he eats things. I think he needs to go potty. Go, Cosmo. Go to mama. Go. Come on, Bowen. Come on, go. Go. I know you're very cute, but you're crazy. Hitchhiker's Guide, yeah, it's so great. Hitchhiker's Guide, honestly, is one of the most brilliant books that have ever been written, I think. The series in general. Douglas Adams is just was such a genius. And yeah, surely you're joking, Mr. Feynman is great just because it's a lot of fun and you get kind of a glimpse into one of the most brilliant minds of the last century and how quirky and bizarre and fun he was. But yeah, I'm glad you agree. Cause, come on, go to mama. Hey, Juby saying, hey, Dan and Mods, have you considered doing something with the laser and sleep? Like shining the laser at your eyelids while you sleep? Yeah, I think we're not going to be trying that anytime soon. There's no need since there's a lot of data you can collect without that. Or so, I mean, eventually, maybe tests like this will be done. I would not recommend it to anyone for the obvious reasons. Also, why specifically sleep? We can probably mimic these states. I was a bit ahead of her age, but she's grown up. Love reading. That's amazing. How old was she? No, poor boy. I mean, listen, he's nuts, and he's strong. He's so strong. He's so strong. So you can't have that. He's also source guarding. Like he gets very aggressive around toys and things like this. Not to us, but to Xena, to the other dog. Good idea, Casey. Work of Jacobo Greenberg, yes, familiar. Ebony brought it to my attention, and then I investigated a little deeper. Yes, at this point, I am familiar. What's up, Gory Gray? Oh, everything is amazing. I'm glad to have you here. Yeah. You want to be careful with lasers and protecting your eyes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Simulation Talk 203. And so we go. So yeah, from wonderful books to what other topics can we be? Honestly, I think that to touch a little bit on the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, I think the reason, aside from the masterful writing, which was just truly unparalleled, some of the ideas, they're just so correct. The fact that Arthur basically had himself available the most incredible adventure that the universe could have provided, but all he wanted was just to be left alone. And then it's such a real human moment. We always dream of these enormous adventures, but when it knocks on the door, very often you're like, can I take a nap though? What's up, Nisha? And that's it's a very common thing. Andres, how are you? And the whole idea that asking better questions is a much more important thing than answering them, because they're guiding principles. Questions are guidelines. How are you? How are you, real Jeff Miller? Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the likes, for the gifts. I mean, I don't know. Hitchhiker's Guide, at least the first book, I don't know if it's, you can read it to kids. I mean, yes, there's Vogons there and all kinds of stuff like that, but still, it really stimulates the imagination in a special way, I would say. I'm doing great. Real Jeff. What's up, Roy Sai? Jacobo lattice concept. Let's see. So all of these ideas, I would say, they fall into the same category. They are basically general philosophies, right? So I needed a reminder for a second to kind of remind me what that is. But it is. It says Jacobo Greenberg's. Hold on, let me move some things around. It's a bit messy today. There we go. It says Jacobo Greenberg's concept of lattice. The lattice concept. A key part of his synergic theory proposes that our experience and reality arise from the hypercomplex distortion of the space-time lattice caused by a brain's neural field. I feel like these ideas are just kind of they belong in these block ideas because they don't propose specificities. He never proposed like an exact way to test for this, aside from the theoretical part of it, which, for example, in difference to something like Hemarov's and Penrose's theory of what was that? Okay, I think I'm hearing voices at this point. Of microtubules, there are some theoretical propositions there, like that you can actually test. Without that, these are interesting theoretical frameworks, but not much more. But obviously, Greenberg's work was very interesting, without a doubt. I would say that the lattice idea is not very different than most ideas in theoretical philosophy. Well, that part of philosophy of mind. And basically, the postulation is that there's some substrate to reality, and then what our minds are is how this part of reality is being perturbed. It almost feels to me like so must be the case that it's almost like, what do you even learn from this, right? Unless you have like some kind of a thing where the rubber meets the road, which is really what the important part about it is. Oh, let me see. Check up. There we go. I wonder who it belongs to. There we go. Should be on the right track now. Itzhak Bentov, same thing. Very deep work, very interesting. I would say Itzhak Bentov's work is a little bit more specific. What's up, KD? Hold on. Just stumbled in. Well, good to have you, Nisha. Getting the vibe for now. All right. Well, we're usually talking about the simulation theory. My name is Danny, and I'm claiming to have found actual proof that we live in a simulation. And we're meeting here on a semi-daily basis, and we'll discuss that, plus science, religion, philosophy, spirituality, God, whatever comes to mind. We talk about it. No notifications. What do you mean? Have you ever watched the old British comedy Red Dwarf? It played a lot with scientific concepts. I'm sorry, I'm just realizing I'm not sure where in the world you're from. I'm from Mars. Can't you see by my hair? I mean, we all grew up in the Western culture. It doesn't really matter. But no, I've never watched the Red Dwarf. Let's see, Red Dwarf show. Cancelled. No, why do you ask though? No, I've never seen that before. This is 1988. No, never seen it. What made you think of this? You got it, Mirror Deck. So the same thing, but I got one. We'll look into it. Is it the YouTube one or the Discord one you missed? Do you have thoughts on Itzhak Bentos? Like I said, Itzhak Bentos, I would say his work is a little bit more specific, highly up there. Like in terms of like he was saying that the Hebrew letters are basically the energetic configurations at the core of reality itself. Like literally, there's an energy moving at the core of reality that kind of looks like the Hebrew Aleph and things like this. It got pretty, sounds pretty general, but it's like very highly specific if you think about it. I don't know if it's true, of course, but I don't know why you're laughing. Was he right about the torus shape of the universe? Also, do you know what black holes represent? Like, are they garbage collectors or tunnels? So the black holes are basically the best hard drives. That's what I would compartmentalize them as. Toroidal, not sure. I think these things need to be verified in terms of observation. Otherwise, it's all like highly theoretical. My intuition is that we don't have a way to know the actual shape of the ultimate existence shape, even with the best scientific tools. What's a medium length hair have to do with Mars? I'm missing just how crazy I look. That was the point. Oh, so the Red Dwarf is kind of like Hitchhiker style. Come on, man! It's hard to live up to the comedy chops of what's his name, Douglas Adams, but maybe. Oh, no notification that the live is on. Interesting. Huh. It is weird. And come join our Discord. If you are on any other platform, go to YouTube to Dango Thoughts and come join. I'm going to put one, also our website, codeofreality.com. This one is presentation, and then I'll put another one, which is the actual hyperlink. There you go. Yeah, no, I believe you. It's a great show. The thing is, I don't watch anything. I don't really watch series or TVs or anything like this. People constantly trying to bring me back into watching TV or shows or things like this. I just don't do that. It just, that's over for me. Once in a while, I will turn on something in the background while we eat something, but it has to be like super light, meaningless, and usually it's just honestly just if I want to watch TV, so mindless content, I would just doom scroll on my Instagram. That's my TV. I would do it very purposefully for like 30 minutes to just get the thing out of the way, and that's it. I can't get into shows. I just don't have that gear anymore. It's out. I haven't watched TV in about 25 years. We don't have a TV, so I don't really watch anything. Appreciate the kind words. Hey, Juby. My background, I guess a little bit of physics, but in terms of knowledge in general, just very curious. If I'm get curious from a topic, I would just go really deep down the rabbit hole. Would investigate as much as I can in terms of who are the people involved, what people really understand. Would listen to some experts. We'll see the arguments about the topics, and I've been doing this my whole life this way. So, but I appreciate the comment. What is the Saturday plan talking more on depth about the encounter with Jesus Christ? very interesting, content of yours. I appreciate it. Yeah, definitely a real plan to do it now. It's just that there's so many things that I have to attend to at the moment that creating videos has to take a back seat for a second. There's just too many things to set everything up. So, everything kind of like up and running in terms of what we can contribute to the investigation and research this year. There's certain people like Carter that are just, to say they're instrumental is just the understatement of the year. Without people like Carter, without Carter, none of what I'm doing on the higher level now would be possible. He's like a machine. Honestly, I'm just blown away, and every day I'm like so grateful for Carter and people like him. They're contributing to the project and working on it. But even with all of that, there's still a lot of things that I have to pay attention to. So for now, making videos until I hire a team, until I can afford to just hire a team full time to do this kind of stuff, and then I can just actually write the material and then we can shoot it. Until that point comes, I think it will have to wait a second. But definitely a real thing that I'm considering engaging in, and I will do that. Yeah, comedy, definitely. Comedy is one of my favorite things, so definitely watch comedy shows sometimes. But again, recently, not so much about anything. Oh, I'm sure I would love it. There's a lot of shows. I've never watched one episode of Game of Thrones. Never watched Breaking Bad. It's funny. The last shows I've watched, were Lost and House, as in Doctor House. That's how long ago I watched anything. It's like just that. There's a lot of shows that are amazing. I don't doubt that for a second. What's up, Sofa King? Do I journal? No. I think it's just a matter of I really enjoy good speakers. Oh, I have a lot of questions on TikTok. I will respond in a moment, guys. I really enjoy people who are incredible communicators. Terrence McKenna, Sam Harris. Who else we can think of? They're that masterful. I'm sure there are others, but Sam and Terrence really stand out in terms of just very compelling communicators. Different styles, obviously, but I really enjoy that. I think language is magical in that way. That if you speak correctly with the right cadence, and you keep it interesting in terms of twists and turns, and you trust the language to deliver, you can, it's much more pleasant to listen to. So I guess I'm a student of this kind of way of speaking, and I listen carefully, and I'm trying to stay loyal to what I really am. What's up, people icon? But I'm definitely borrowing a lot from great speakers and how to communicate. Journaling, I'm sure it's really good at clearing your mind, but I would say communicating in an interesting way on a regular basis, it's just practice. You just have to do it a lot, talk to people, and then allow yourself to start a sentence with a word that doesn't seem to make any sense in that sentence, and then see if you can complete the sentence still. That's a really good practice, I would say. What is my average response time to emails at this point? It depends on the email. If the email is one paragraph long, I can respond pretty quickly. If the email is anything beyond 2 paragraphs or 3 paragraphs, probably not going to respond to it anytime soon. Maybe in a few months when it kind of dies. I just don't have the capacity to sit and read all the stuff. And I'm sure that people are sharing some beautiful things. I don't doubt that for one second. I simply do not have the bandwidth to like sit and read the whole thing. And also many questions. What I think I will do is that I'm training an AI right now, ChatGPT, for the majority of questions that are asked over and over and over again, and just have these responses built in. And it will say, obviously, because I don't want people to feel slighted, it will say this is an AI generated response, but this is what Danny would answer for this question. I think that might give a solution, because many questions they're being asked over and over and over again, same questions. What's up, KD? I don't know if you're saying this. So Big Bang is saying I like Terrence Howard and Billy Carson. I don't know if you're trolling me or not, but yeah, they are walking word salads in my worldview. They they are doing everything that I would never do, which is they first of all they actually do not. What they're saying does not track logic. What they're saying is extremely simplistic or doesn't track logic, and they actually themselves don't know what they're talking about. That puts me off quite a bit. I would not put him in the same category as Terrence McKenna. Oh, me CMR. Is that this is the second person talking about my encounter with Jesus Christ? Are you guys the same person? One thing I am now, I guess, more in the habit of practicing more and more, which is that, hey Nico, how are you, brother? There's something to a certain kind of communication that is also like kinder communication. So Risha Mahashi, I never know how to pronounce his name correctly. So like more like sages and people that are closer to enlightenment. There's a certain compassion in their voice, in their presence, in the way they talk to people, and I definitely don't have a lot of that when we're talking about technical things. And that this is the thing that I'm trying to practice to bring more into the conversation. Because if I let's say I'm right after a meditation retreat, it's relatively easy because you kind of carry this vibe. But if I'm not after one, and the grind of answering the same questions over and over again, and then people come in and they have all kinds of ideas that, let's say, I find them silly, and that's true. Like there's a lot of ideas that you kind of well, it doesn't mean that it can't be the case that they're right and I'm wrong. But if I find somebody's idea silly, and that's just what the situation is, I definitely lack the amount of compassion to be able to communicate in a way that is much more, uh, uh, patient. And that by itself is a very powerful communication tool, but also it's a better situation for everybody. So I think this is the thing that I'm really trying to do more of now, and not to fake it, but to actually have it. So, the difference between just kind of like nodding and not saying anything, and then maybe responding in a way that it's almost like you're acting like a different attitude than what you hold. So that's not what I'm talking about. I'm trying to get more to an actual more compassionate state towards the person who's actually talking. And even if I don't agree with it or if I think it's silly, one of the solutions that I thought of is to basically move the conversation to more personal line. So like, for example, why does it matter to them? Because honestly, it's more interesting too, right? So if let's say somebody comes, like a few nights ago, we had an example of this. Like we had somebody who like came in and kept on repeating all the stuff about 369. Now it doesn't mean that there's nothing in 369, but these are just like very blunt, simple ideas. They're memes. They're not interesting because they're not actually doing anything. Like people that usually invoke these concepts, they think they know what they're talking about, but they don't. And see, even the way that I'm talking about it now, it just sounds like, I'm just like trying to put them down. I'm not. I'm just being honest about my position on it, which is that in order to understand what these things mean, it's not it's not good enough to know that certain things follow other things. Like knowing facts is not interesting, right? Understanding things deeply is interesting to me. So if somebody doesn't understand things deeply, but they just kind of reiterate what other people said, it's a little annoying to me, especially if they're like they just do it kind of just they keep throwing it in there. And I guess the reason it's annoying to me is because they didn't put in the work to really understand, and then they basically want to just inject it into the conversation. But I guess if I step aside and I look at it from the side, and if I have a moment, to kind of absorb it from a more neutral perspective, I can appreciate that. What are they really trying to do? They just want to communicate. They want to connect, right? So what is the thing there? They want to connect. They want to express the idea that means something to them. And to me, in that instance, it's just the information itself, right? But for them, it might be an instance of attempt to connect. So having the visibility of that, I might actually do a lot of work and heavy lifting in having more of that compassion. But I'll be the first one to admit that I'm not that great at it at the moment, and something to aspire to. But it's something that I'm actively trying to cultivate more of. I think it would help both, obviously, the listeners, but also me to have a more of a positive interaction, no matter what the input is. Like, I don't know how I would have a conversation with Terrence Howard, for example. It's just, to me, it's just like, because I view what he does as obnoxious because he pretends to know things that he simply doesn't, and it's very clear that he doesn't. But again, see, having that attitude is not really helping because he's a human, and he's trying to communicate, and for whatever reason, that's what he chooses to do. So even if I think that he doesn't understand what he's talking about, all of that stuff, that might be a side point. Maybe investigating why does it mean so much to him, why people are so thirsty for meaning at the moment. That might be more of the central conversation. And having that in view might be helpful also in general for humanity. I think if we communicate more through that lens, it opens the window for a lot more um, constructive conversations, which is something that I think is really required now. All of that being said, you can still, put your foot down when it's important, because sometimes people just will utilize the fact that they're trying to use the fact that some people are just being too nice, and then just kind of run through everything and basically steal everybody's time. But yeah, this is a fine balance, but it's definitely a big portion of communication that I want to hone in on and make better. Terrence Howard, the actor, yeah. So that whole thing when he went on Joe Rogan, right? That's just. But I guess um, Eric Weinstein did a pretty good job with him, right, on the second one, which is like in a more understanding way, kind of helped him guide himself out of this very weird position he put himself in, which is just espousing a complete nonsense in a way that sounds like he's convinced of himself. And Eric gave him an out, which is nice. And I saw a real attempt of him to understand. Billy Carson, I wouldn't be so sanguine about, because he's Billy Carson truly, I think, is actually like nefarious in terms of like he actually does not care. Like he is like I see him as just a narcissist. And again, even there, like I'm sure there's a way to have compassion towards that state, but I actually don't see them trying to do the same thing. I think Terrence really wants to be a part of the conversation, and he doesn't necessarily know how. So that's how he chose to do it. Billy, I think, is literally a con artist. Like, so. And I've been saying this way before the whole thing happened with Billy. This is on record. I was saying this way before. And I can tell you the same thing about Greer right now. One times one equals two. But it's funny. Some people are laughing. 1 times 1 equal 2. It is funny, but then what's weird is that I had good friends of mine who are smart people. Not obviously not scientists. No scientist in his right mind would ever text this, but just people. But they're not dumb people, and they would they texted me the day after, because I'm to some degree in the public sphere at this point. They kind of texted me, "Hey, what do you think about the Terrence Howard thing? Wasn't it amazing?" I was like, "How do I tell you that not only it's not amazing, this is like an abomination to human thought, like what that was, right?" And but how do you say it without saying what I just said? How do you? But then the problem there is that because my actual internal state reflects what I just said, if I say anything else, it feels like I'm lying. That's my problem. See, it feels like I'm lying, and I never want to do that because it feels like dissonance inside. So how do you say things without sounding like an asshole, but still be honest? So the only way to do that is to bring your internal state to a more forgiving and a more loving and a more compassionate state naturally, like more naturally, and then you can speak the truth, and the truth is much more subtle. Like it's much less aggressive in terms of the execution of it. So yeah, you got a lot of people with this word salad, which is honestly, I was blown away by the number of people that got caught with that. So Evil Icon is saying it's hard to gauge the meaning behind text. Impossible unless you told or guessed correctly. Are you talking about text here? What's up? Привет. Just going through the comments back on TikTok. Good to see you, Evil Icon. Listening to podcasts and watching documentaries is a great way to actually acquire quite a bit of information. Somebody asking me, Bing Bang Hank, saying, do you feel like you're wasting your life spending too much time on this? On this in, what do you mean? The chats or the project? Oh yeah, in chats. Yeah, in chats is a little bit more difficult for sure. Yeah, it is a combination of human thought. No, it is, like, truly. Like the fact that somebody gets to, like, the podcast is the size of Joe Rogan and talks about just like, I don't understand what's going on with like just human cognition. Just like basic things, you know. But I think it tells me more about the state of affairs with humans, which is like people really want something beautiful and greater to be true, which it is. And this is why a lot of people like that kind of enter the picture. And you know what? I will even go as far as to say that I think that whatever inspires Terrence inside is the real thing. I really think so. It's just that he doesn't know how to translate to something to something functional, because he does not understand the science. He does not understand any of these things, and know that, for example, this other chemistry periodic table is not an alternative periodic table. We do have alternative periodic tables, but they are arranged in the way they're arranged so we can do certain things with them. So they're just defined this way, so it's easier for us to look at there's no periodic table in nature. The elements are not arranged in some kind of a table like this, right? This is something we do for ourselves, so it's easier for us to discern certain relationships in of the chemical bonds. This other alternative, if there are quite a few other chemical periodic tables, they're different because we use them for different things, just like there's different maps. So that alone, just the meta problem, right? What Terrence is trying to say, what they're lying to you, that they arranged it in a box so you think is a square. It's like that claim alone tells you how he thinks about the world, which is like there's some kind of a conspiracy of knowledge, which is just we just read it this way. So that's why these ideas are corrosive, because they create they inject the idea that there's some kind of a some nefarious goals behind us creating knowledge, which, again, if you ask me, and I'm going to keep repeating it because it makes perfect sense to me, the only thing I can guess that would make sense in terms of what would be engineering these kind of memes and releasing them into the wilderness of social media is if somebody would actually be trying to destroy our civilization, or like, and this is interesting because I'm saying, but I don't know what it is, but like it's the only thing that makes sense to me in terms of somebody engineering it. Now it may be just complete happenstance, right? But if you ask yourself what would be the best way to make sure that a civilization fails, you convince them that what their biggest strength is evil, and they should not partake in it. The biggest strength of humans is knowledge creation. So it seems to me that it's reasonable to assume that somebody injecting these memes of what you're doing with knowledge is evil, so people stop doing it. Because then we become powerless, because our actual power comes from knowledge creation. And all these memes, they squarely belong in that category. The people who are telling you how to correctly think about the world in terms of how to develop knowledge, they're lying to you. You shouldn't listen to them. You shouldn't listen to them. You should listen just to your gut feeling. Listen, your gut feeling tells you a lot of things that are absolutely wrong. Sometimes your gut feeling tells you that are correct, but not all the time. It's the combination between your gut feeling and technical thinking that would give you the best results. What's up, Just Jen? What's up, Banana? Nature didn't do that, but we need to be on time for shit. So, yeah, I think that I'm on record always saying there's no such thing as outside of nature. As long as it's happening, it's natural. Everything we do in a lab, completely natural. It's nature doing it. You are nature. You are doing what you're doing is what nature is doing. There's no separation whatsoever. In fact, postulating that to say there's natural and then there's what humans are doing, that in fact it implies that humans have a special standing. They're special because there's nature, there's humans, and then there's everything else. That means you think humans are that special. No, we're just nature. What's your thoughts on the phenomena of people receiving phone calls from their loved ones after passing? I don't know what to think of that. I mean, I believe that it can happen. I do believe at this point, because I understand that all of this is a software, that there's a lot more flexibility to it than I previously considered. But I have a logical explanation to it, which is that it is software. And software can be hacked. Software can be malleable. There's a lot more freedom of operation with software than you would have with just the laws of physics. So a lot of these, special instances of things happening, some of them I absolutely believe are happening. When does the spice molecule come? So, the spirit molecule. If you Google the spirit molecule, you'll see. Perfection, Richardson. Terence Hart is in the right place, and he should continue the experiment, which should be taken with a pinch of salt. Again, there are many distractions of true knowledge. Wait, Terrence's heart is in the right place, and he should continue experimenting. Well, his heart is in the right place, but he's nowhere near understanding the first thing about what he's saying. Like, he literally did not make one sentence on the Joe Rogan of the 3 hours. He did not make one sentence that was a coherent sentence, not one. And I gave him the benefit of the doubt. Like, I was trying to listen to what he might be meaning by that. I wasn't just kind of like, oh, that doesn't make any sense in terms of science. No, I really tried to understand what he might be trying to say. He doesn't know what he's talking about. So this I have a new rule here, guys, and this is something I'm gonna start vocalizing these things because this channel is growing. So I'm gonna give people a chance because sometimes people just don't realize that what they're saying is so absurdly evil and ignorant. So I'm gonna give you a chance, Crypto Bill. But if I see another comment like that, what are you going to do to save the Jews from Judaism? You will be thrown out, and I will report your account. I'm not going to have hate speech on my channels, and from now on, I'm going to call you out. I want to make it super clear that if I see anybody employing hate speech towards anybody, towards a group, towards a person, you're going to be immediately out of here, and you will be reported. So I hope I'm making myself clear. His shapes are cool. His shapes mean nothing. Here's what I'm saying these things very often. I repeat myself. Oh, cool. Yeah. I mean, right now we're good on here, but I'll make you a mod. No problem. There you go. Let's see. Okay, there you go. You are a mod, evil icon. Thank you. But I have pretty good mods. Thank you, Ebony, on YouTube. So what I want to say is, wait, what was the comment that I was responding to? Oh, Daft 101 001. That I think. Oh, what I was responding to Breezy is that what I think most people don't appreciate, and I've said this many times on the live before, is how incredible, complex, and truly mind blowing the actual work is that is being done in physics, in mathematics, theoretical physics. It's just that it's harder to understand. It's not impossible. It just takes some work. And I think the problem is that a lot of people, the famous quote by Bertrand Russell, the problem with this world is that fools are so sure of themselves, and wise people are so full of doubts. That's essentially what it is, right? You have people like Terrence Howard coming up with these like just I'm telling you, super basic graphics, super basic, nothing crazy amazing about it. Have nothing to do with simulations. It's all like just constructed in render and in Blender. This is some kindergarten shit, it's just truly like, it's just not. If you look at the work that is being done in pure mathematics, in theoretical physics, it's mind-blowing, and we're coming up with solutions to things that are like building incredible things in the world. But humans are amazing, but some of these things, it just takes some work to understand. But this is the beautiful thing, it's available for everybody. That's why channels like the Theories of Everything channel, the TOE podcast that with Kurt Jemangol, is so amazing, because yes, a lot of the concepts that are being discussed, they're kind of like up there and maybe sometimes a little bit complicated to understand, but it's beautiful to watch people who know what they're talking about having these kinds of conversations. So even if you don't quite understand everything, just watching people who know what they're talking about having the conversations on that level is informative, or should be informative, for everybody, because you would have an example of how true experts talking about something. the kind of rhetoric that is being employed, the kind of the attitude that is put forth, as you know, with the rigor, right? So like there's something infatuating about that. To watch an expert breaking down something, and then you compare it to what Terrence Howard is doing, is literally just a word salad. He does not, when you're trying to explain something to somebody, there's a certain pace to your speech. There's a certain attentiveness you pay to the listener, especially if you're sitting one on one with Joe Rogan. So when, for example, when Joe wouldn't understand something or he looks confused, an expert would notice that and say, "Well, hold on, are you following me?" And then if he says, "I'm not so sure," I'm like, "Okay, let me explain it again. This time I'll try and simplify it." This will be the kind of rhetoric of an expert, especially when they know they're talking about something complicated. When somebody just throws a bunch of words at you, and then somebody's like listening like this, and then when it looks like you don't understand, they keep going, but they say more words that are now not, they're not going back, not trying to explain, they just keep going with these words. That should be obvious to everybody, that is a person who does not understand what they're saying. They heard these words before, but they don't know what they mean, right? And it's, if for no other reason, having an example of these experts talking to each other is a great way to sharpen your own mind, even if you don't quite know what they're saying, because you understand the kind of attitudes that needs to be employed and how smart humans look at the world, right? And slowly, you'll be surprised if you listen to enough of these conversations. All of a sudden, the concept you've heard from experts would start making sense. Maybe not on a mathematical level, but just start making a lot more sense. You would understand why the conundrum of the quantum world is so big, not just because quantum is weird. No, they like an expert would take you step by step through what are the problems that are truly being worked on at the moment on a graduate student level, or in PhD programs or in research programs. What are the actual questions that are being asked now? Most of the stuff that you hear from popular science and the memes that are being regurgitated by people like Billy Carson, these are things we've known for 30 since the 1930s. So almost 100 years. I'm not kidding. A lot of the stuff that they're saying, for example, the James, the Sylvester James Gates, right? The Adinkras, and that's a big meme, right? That is now being like everywhere. This is a 30-year-old work. This is not new. This is old. And most of the stuff that's being regurgitated now, it's like from the 1930s. We know all this stuff since the 1930s. So imagine what physicists know now. That's the thing you want to be paying attention to. That's the exciting thing. So if you think the shapes that Terrence Howard showed are cool, I know it was just a throwaway comment. I get it, but I got into a rant because of it, so I appreciate it. Look at the incredible geometry that we're now playing with in modern times. That will blow your mind, right? Look into M theory. Even though it's now also stepping out of favor, but these are real ideas, and you're thinking about the smartest people on the planet. Set theory, constructor theory by Chiara Marletta, or Marletta Chiara. I always forget her name. Hold on. Chiara Marletto. Yes, Italian physicist. She was a PhD student under David Deutsch, and they together came up with constructor theory. Incredible theory that might revolutionize physics. That proposes that maybe the modality of looking at spin, momentum, and the fundamentals of physics are maybe not even the right modality to discern what is fundamentally real. Like, yes, it's a helpful tool, but the postulation in constructor theory is maybe we should look at the world in terms of what is possible and impossible. And these are real things that you can discern. So, for example, there's certain things that, under what we understand about the laws of physics, are impossible in principle. And that is a counterfactual that gives you a lot of information about what is possible. And then you think of it, and so in that sense, constructor theory is very promising because it kind of promises to revolutionize physics as a whole, not just to do a particular kind of research differently. So usually physics runs from axioms, and then you kind of deduct everything from the axioms. What makes sense? So it's almost like you draw the lines of the tennis court, right? What makes sense, what doesn't make sense within the but with constructor theory, it's almost like you have an eye that can zoom in on any part of reality with the same amount of resolution, because the question it is asking is relevant to any level of emergence of reality, any scale. Really, it transcends all conditions you might find yourself in. And when we're talking about the way that physics does things so far, it is scale dependent. So at the moment we don't think of it. So for example, if you think about momentum, spin, or even coordinates, right? Like all of these things, they're dependent on scales, because even though there are Lorentz invariants and things that are like scale independent, a lot of things are scale dependent. In other words, they change with the scale that you're observing. But the question of is it possible or impossible has the same level of resolution, no matter the size, no matter the energy, no matter what. It's just, are you asking, is it possible or is it impossible according to the situation you find yourself in? And it sounds almost too obvious, but it's literally a revolutionary idea in the way that you think in physics, because up until now, nobody was thinking about it this way. And some people are still resisting it, right? These are really exciting ideas that probably will bring a lot of incredible fruits in the next century. That's the thing we should be paying attention to, not Terrence Howard. So, hey, Nico, how are you, brother?
Danny, I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing amazing.
I wanted to say something because, I at one point, I've heard a lot of dialogue of Terrence Howard is dangerous.
I didn't say it's dangerous. But go ahead, yeah.
But at the same time, I was fascinated because about 20 people, and these are like people I haven't heard of in a long time, sent me a message saying, watch this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I watched it, and he opened that podcast with Joe Rogan, like I think what did he say? 1 times 2 is 3, or
1 times 1 equals 2.
Right, which is like, I mean, anyone that has studied math, like that's like insulting, right? That's like immediately it's insulting. Like there's no I can't be nice about it. But I sat through it, and it's very hard to sit through. And what I appreciated from him, and I like I told you, I try to find the good in everyone.
Yeah, you're amazing in that way. Like I told you, you're like my role model in that stuff.
Well, what I appreciated about him is he had this enthusiasm. It was very undisciplined, but I really appreciated his enthusiasm, right? Like he was like he was kind of like an idiotic genius, you know what I mean?
But like, why the genius part?
Well, because I've met a lot of geniuses, and when you talk to geniuses, it's like they have ADD, right? Like their mind is jumping from concept to concept, and they're out of control. It's hard to kind of
right, but then they end up somewhere. They build something. They create a theoretical framework. I know what you're talking about.
Well, true geniuses aren't breaking laws, right? You're not breaking any rules. So when you're being creative and you're flowing, it's all everything's legal. But when you're an idiot, you're breaking rules constantly, right? You're doing very illegal things. And Terrence Howard was breaking a lot of rules and speaking nonsense, but I appreciated his enthusiasm and his spirit. But he was also very hard-headed, right? And so, but one thing that I took away from Terrence Howard is he presented an alternative model of physics, very wrong. But what made it viral is it was very accessible to people, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is that I try to listen to, in 2020 when the pandemic hit, we had 2 theories of everything come out, right? We had Wolfram's theory of everything, and we had Eric Weinstein's theory of everything, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And the thing about Eric Weinstein went on Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan said, all right, explain it to me. And he had this attitude, which is, well, I'd have to explain to you geometric unity and algebra and all that. And he was just being such a pompous ass.
Well, hold on. But it is true, though. Like, in order to truly understand it, you have to understand a lot of the stuff that's very difficult to understand, right?
But so there's a quote from Einstein, I might be butchering, right, which is like, a true genius should be able to explain something simpler, but not too simple, right? Or you should be able to explain something complex in a very simple way, but not too simple.
It can't be too simple, yes. If it is truly complex, it's not going to be too simple. It's not true that you can explain anything to a 5-year-old. That's just not true.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, the thing about, like, I don't expect, like, I've tried to learn string theory and I'm too dumb for string theory, right? It's too complicated. That is truly complex. You can't really explain string theory to a dummy. And geometric unity might be that way. But, I thought, in contrast, Wolfram did a really good job at making his theory very accessible, mm-hmm. right? And naturally, it is a very accessible theory. But what I think people are craving is something that is accessible. And like what you were saying, there's no free lunch. We got to do the hard work. And listening to Toe, you listen to mathematicians talk about very simple things and very formal mathematical, constructs. And so you could appreciate how deep these conversations are and how rigorous they are. But I think people are craving a very, very, very good science communicator out there. And I think, although Neil deGrasse Tyson does a good job, he's a cosmologist, so he doesn't really touch the core physics stuff that I would like to see him touch. Mm-hmm. I think Sean Carroll does a really good job at it. But I think I'm pinpointing that as, like, kind of a big need, right? I think Leonard Susskind does an amazing job at doing that, right? He was a plumber, and so he explains things from a very, and Feynman obviously did that very well. So I think that's kind of this thing I wanted to communicate, because I think there's always been this issue with science communication.
Carl Sagan.
Someone comes along and presents this alternative physics model, it tends to go viral, even though it's.
And the thing right on the surface. So the first thing to mention is that everybody should. Now you all heard an example of how I aspire to reason about people who I disagree with, because truly, and I'm not saying this, in an empty way. So anybody who doesn't know, Nico is an actual scientist. I'm not. He's an actual AI researcher, and he spent years in academia, and he leads a startup company. So his intellectual chops are definitely in place and a lot higher than mine, and yet he always remains very, very, very humble when it comes to other individuals, very, very caring of other humans. And again, I aspire to do more of that. So I appreciate you always bringing that voice. I really do. I guess if I have to think of the best merger of the talents, what Terrence Howard. So what is clear to me, which is the difference between him and Billy Carson, is that he really wants to participate genuinely. Unfortunately, the case is that the entry point to some of these things are you can't go around that. You got to spend good 5-6 years hammering it out day after day. Physicists, people don't realize this, but like by the time somebody finishes a PhD in physics, they've literally solved thousands of equations as practice. So like you can't compete with that. You can't, you don't carry the same kind of understanding of these things, the specificities of them. So I think one way that he could have contributed, and maybe still can, if he wants to participate in the game, he should find the lane where he truly is, so it's authentic, and then utilize the skills that he does have, which is communication, to help science to communicate better. Instead of saying Einstein was an idiot, who's our boy? My brain is like spacing right now. Feynman. Richard Feynman was an idiot. He just creates scribbles. Like these kind of statements that just like you're like, dude, literally the most genius people to have ever lived that spent their lives studying this. Their intellect, you can't even comprehend it, right? And you saying they're fools and you know better. I mean, that's just, what you could do is you can say, hey, I understand that the entry point is very high. How about I use my communication skills, go and create a show where I talk to the smartest physicists of today and try and understand what they're doing, and then have a conversation about it in a way that gets the public interested and inspired. Here's a perfect usage of his talents in which he can also get to participate, right? But it's not, I'm watching, and again, we can play, if I put my Nico hat, I can say, okay, I see that it's definitely coming from trauma. Like I understand it. I have to stand out. It's like a narcissistic, egoic thing. I can play the understanding game, but at the same time, if you are inspiring people to not only not pay attention to the right thing, because you're trying to compete with something you simply can't compete with, what you're doing, you're creating an illusion that there's some kind of an evil wall there that others shouldn't look, even when in reality that's our only salvation. Like understanding the world truly is our only salvation. So I see it as a deep disservice to humanity, and I wish he would use these talents more in that way. And I guess maybe that's the middle ground. I don't know. But yeah, that's definitely something that yeah, I can take example from you for sure. Like to be a little bit more compassionate towards people no matter what. And because it's like, I don't know. I feel like there's something. The word that comes to mind is egregious about it. It's almost like it's capturing the wrong attention. You're basically capitalizing on people's need for meaning, but you're filling it in with bullshit. Like you're filling it in with emptiness. It doesn't actually lead anywhere. So you can say, yeah, but it inspires them to think in that direction. No. It inspires people to think in directions that don't exist. These are not real things, right? So that I guess that's my contention with it. But again, with fully taking the caveat that the much better way for society, for me personally, and in general, is to have the best, to put the best foot forward, and to kind of perceive the best foot forward from whomever is speaking. I would agree with you on that one. You still there? Oh, Nick was doing something, I guess.
Yeah. No, I was I was washing dishes. Yes, I definitely agree with you. Yeah, I mean, I think I listen to a lot of science, even stuff that I know already, but even hearing it in a very different format helps me think about it very differently. So I like the idea of like going through, and even like, what you've talked about a lot of this laser experiment. It's a very fundamental experiment that we look over, right? And even I was watching this series on Amazon Prime called Genius about Einstein, and I realized Einstein was going through the fundamentals the entire way, and I haven't derived any of Einstein's equations, or I don't understand Einstein's stuff. But like, so there's this concept in science, right, which is like we stand on the shoulders of giants, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then I kind of thought to myself, well, am I really standing on the shoulders of giants if I haven't myself fundamentally gone through all of Einstein's work and all of the classic work, right, and gone through it myself? I just take it as gospel, right? I take special relativity as gospel. I take E is equal to mc squared and all the other things. I've derived Newtonian mechanics, but I've never gone to the quirky stuff. Although I have done a lot of quantum as well, but not really. There's a lot of physics that I haven't explored myself, and so like Wolfram. I saw Wolfram give a talk at Caltech where he said, who here remembers how to do long division? And like only a few people raised their hands. And he's like, we have calculators now. You don't need to, you just need to understand the concept of division. You don't need to actually be able to do it, right? And he said, today we have computers that do a lot of physics. You just need to understand the concept of physics. You don't need to do the mechanics of it anymore.
And the same with coding, by the way. Most coders today don't even understand the logic of machine learning. They just kind of know that there's libraries that do A, B, or C.
Yeah, and so there's this kind of interesting like trade-off, right? Where it's like, especially with coding. I mean, all of this is. I read this article saying like science is going to become accessible to everyone now, right? Chemistry, physics, all the mechanics are not going to be automated into a library or automated into an AI engine that you could say, you can give it the thought experiment. You can be the orchestrator, and the actual calculation is done by an AI agent, right? And so, but I think the key is we still need to rigorously understand the concept of what's happening, right? We need to understand when two particles, or when an electron is in a box, right? There's a lot of weird stuff going on when an electron is in a box. It can technically go through the box, which is really weird, right? And calculating the probability of it going through the box is non-zero and very tricky, but like, I don't know, that still is a tricky concept for me to understand. But anyways.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. And first of all, that's a very funny comment. Somebody, Eva Lycon said, just don't drink and derive. That's really funny. Because he said you derived. And to anybody who doesn't understand, because sometimes these simple concepts kind of fly over people's heads, it just means, and I'm not condescending anybody, but just in case people don't know. So derivation just simply means that somehow you arrived at it yourself. Like you understand the principles, and then you derive Newtonian physics from just first principles. It's like, that's what makes sense. So it's almost like you check out that, yeah, I kind of got the result that Newton got, but obviously he got there by himself without anybody else knowing about it ever, which is different, and came up with a calculus to do it. It just literally came up with calculus just to solve a problem. That's amazing. But so I'm re-listening, and I'm telling. I don't know if you're still there, but I'm re-listening right now to. Well, okay. So you know how much I love the beginning of Infinity, right? And Deutsch's first book, The Fabric of Reality, he wasn't that good of a writer back then, so it's a little clunky. And I read it a few times, but I think this is new because I don't think it was available before. They came up with an audio version of the first book as well. So I got very excited because I haven't read it in like years, and it's actually a chapter in that book is actually what was on my mind. They eventually led me to the idea of looking at the stoplight, that then led me to the conclusion eventually to use the laser with the molecule. So because it has such symbolic representation, I was like symbolic standing. I was like, well, it's going to be exciting to just re-listen to it. Plus, it's the same narrator that I really love. And Kelsey thinks he's very monotone and she can't listen to him. I really love him. So it's the same. So I don't know if you ever read The Fabric of Reality, but really this is kind of like what he opens with. And it goes to the core of what you're saying, is that it was never the case. Science was never really in the business of predictions or measurements or calculations even. Science is in the business of understanding reality. All of these other things, they're just tools to do that. The predictions, the observations, the measurements, they're just tools to help you understand the world. And that really makes things a lot clearer, because very often people conflate the two. They think that knowing what certain equations do where is somehow amounts to understand the thing. And it doesn't unless you fully comprehend in your mind's eye how these things connect and what actually makes them so. And that fabric of what he calls understanding, which he utilizes the word in a different way than what we usually mean it, by it. So he asks the word to do a lot more work. He almost reframes the word a little bit. It's almost like a fundamental element of reality when a mind understands reality. It's almost like a special instance. It's not just, I understand how cars work. It's like, no, understanding certain facets of reality is almost like a transcendent moment, so to speak. And that's what science is in the business of, or at least good science, what good science should be in the business of. And in that sense, I would say that it's no different than any other time. It's just that when you have more advanced tools, you can kind of delegate a lot of the mundane tasks of calculating, doing all that stuff to the thing. So you can allocate more time to understand more and deeper things about the world. It's true that at a certain point, there's going to be a trade-off. And if you lose the ability to calculate any of this stuff, any of the technical stuff, you kind of lose the ability to also understand on a certain level, because the technicality, understanding how the technicality translates to the actual is part of the understanding. But the second you understand the concept, this is why equals MC squared is so powerful, is that you don't necessarily, you said you accept it as gospel. Not quite. I know it's almost like it's a thing, right? That people say in academia to almost to signal humility, but it's not really. You don't accept it on gospel. You accept it on the basis that you know that it is the basis of us measuring, understanding, building many, many, many things that we use every day and they work. And that's the model we use. So there's definitely, even if it's not entirely true, because of course there must be a deeper explanation, it's true enough to be accepted as a very useful model of the world, right? So it's not quite the same as like accepting something just because somebody said so, but because you understand some of the steps of the logic that are being employed. And you're right, field equations are actually not as simple as people talk about. There's like, I understand Einstein's they say special relativity, let's say. If you ask most people, because they know the popular science version of it, they would say, yeah, I understand it. But no, like the field equations are very complex. There's incredible, crazy complexity to them. But at the same time, even if you don't understand the math to its full depth, and in your case, you might even understand the math pretty deeply, but even if you don't, you do feel that there's some very fundamental logic to the idea that space is a fabric of some sort, and the behavior of that fabric translates directly to what we observe when we make measurements and everything else that we understand about physics. I would say that's a much deeper merit than just gospel. Would you not agree with that? Oh, I think Nico had to jump off. But, oh, okay, good. Thank you, Ellipsian. Appreciate the gift. Thank you so much. It's very adorable. Elements not organized in the... Yeah.
Danny, sorry to jump off.
Oh, it's all good.
Some chores.
Sure,
but,
sure.
Yes, everyththing you're saying is very much true. And I think the key is to, like when you go through school, they essentially are, it's like boot camp. They're just telling you, do all this stuff, right? And it's not until later after that you connect the dots after school. You're like, oh my God, all this is connected. And it almost feels like school is useless because there's not enough time to make those connections. Take time, right? They take a lot of time and real world experience. In science, it's experience in the lab and stuff. And so there's not enough time to help you build those connections, but they teach you the fundamentals and the laws so that you never break them. But exactly what you were saying is that those connections are what take scientists decades to build. And the amazing thing today is when you watch, the theories of everything or these other, you're watching these brilliant, concept networks come together and connect. And seeing that is a huge kind of like privilege of living in today's time is that we get to see very deep concept networks clash and connect. And so, yeah, and I say this in a way to try to empower everyone, because this is accessible to everyone. But like what you were suggesting, you kind of have to, you can't skip steps, right? You have to start off with like the basic concepts of math and understand what certain maths do. Not even doing the mechanics of math, but just understanding what algebra is, what calculus is, right? What, I learned calculus, and then once, I do it on occasion for fun, but we have computers that do calculus now, so there's no need to do it mechanically. But there is very beautiful.
Yeah, there's something very satisfying the second you get, when you get the practice in. Just it's something very fun about derivatives, and it's just fun. It's just your brain feels like it's, well, when you get to a certain flow of it, obviously. Up until that point when it's clunky, it's excruciating. But yeah, man. No, I as you know, like I deeply appreciate your take on these things, and I really take a big example of that. The humility there, and the humanity, and the ability to see the best in people. Again, I truly I take my hat off to you. Like it's incredible to watch. And what ultimately, I think that there's always a layer where people can feel comfortable. Like you said, like you don't necessarily have to go into the technicalities of calculus, but just for example, asking ChatGPT, there's a thing that I wanted to say to you, and I forgot what it is. I'll try and remember as I'm speaking. This is like specifically to what you said, but like it can be interesting even to just, for example, because sometimes you just hear these concepts, but you can just ask, like truly, you can just ask it right now. Like, how amazing is it that you live in a world? Thank you, Evalicon, that you can just ask. So it's like you can go to ChatGPT and say, "Hey, what is calculus? Can you explain calculus to me in like a paragraph, so I can understand the general, like what is it? Like what are we using it for?" And it will give you a pretty good explanation. And then you're like, huh, I never thought of I didn't know. I just know this word calculus, and then like, well, how does calculus connect to geometry, let's say? And it will give you a really good answer, and then you start building a map in your head of real understanding, even though you don't know any of the technicalities of them. Now, at that point, if something all of a sudden, pulls your interest or imagination, you might get into it. There's Khan Academy that you can, for free, you can pick up like basically anything. But even that mapping can be really interesting for most people. What do you want to say, brother?
The best tool, and I've heard you recommend this a million times, is it 3 Blue 1 Brown?
Oh, he's amazing. Yeah, but I feel like he is a little bit. If you know nothing about math, that's a little advanced, I think.
The amazing thing about that channel is I've learned a lot of math that is just very abstract to me. I just know I just shut up and calculate.
Yeah.
But when I went through his channel and I saw the visualizations that he does, I now understand it intuitively, right? I have this visual understanding. And so he connected a lot of dots for me. But I think that a lot of those dots that he does, a lot of the visuals that he has can mean something to someone that doesn't have that mechanics background. So, but
you're right.
I agree.
You're right.
He's pretty deep.
No, it's pretty advanced, but you're right. Maybe for some people, and this can be a really beautiful discovery for somebody. It is true that some people are so visual that just trying to understand numbers will simply never work for them. But if they see some of his illustrations, you might be one of these dormant geniuses. Like you might oh my God, that's what they all mean. I get it. I totally get it. And then you'll just understand it much better than a lot of mathematicians. It happens. Because there's certain ways with which different humans understand, and sometimes it just wasn't the correct way for you. And if you see the visual of it, it will all of a sudden click, and you're like, oh my God, I never thought that that's what they're talking about, but I totally get that. But I would say starting with mapping is a really nice thing, especially with what I love doing sometimes is I would take a concept that I've heard, and even if I know it like on the surface. Thank you so much for the contribution, Nico. Love you, brother. If it's a concept I've heard on this kind of like surface level, I have a surface level understanding of it or no understanding of it, and I would just I like get like a 10, 15 minutes out of my day, which is nothing, and just go into it. And with ChatGPT, in 10, 15 minutes, with a few questions, you can go really deep. Like, like I had this thing with topology. Like, I know what topology is, the study of surface. I even did some exercises before of like trying to solve some problems in topology. But then I was like, yeah, but like I really wanted to know, like, but how is it different than studying the geometry of a surface? And yes, intuitively, I to some degree understand that it has to do with the types of perturbations you can do to it. But I really wanted to know more. And there was like there was this like thirst. So I was like, hey, I just took 15 minutes and with ChatGPT, and I understood topology on such a much deeper level, and just things like this. Like, and you can pick any topic, like, especially with the stuff that lends itself to memes, right? Everybody like quantum tunneling. What is really quantum tunneling? Just ask ChatGPT. It will give you a really good answer. And I don't know, I find that knowing what it really is, or what we really understand about it, is much more beautiful than what you can ever learn in the meme space. Also, you will know that you actually informed, and there's power in that. There's an empowering feeling in knowing that you actually are informed, or more informed than most people. And I find it beautiful that we live in a time in which this is possible. Wait, what? I'm gonna try and see the comments 1 second. Talking Deft on TikTok. Danny Goller on TikTok. What dude's video? No, I was talking about ChatGPT. Oh, the Toe podcast. That's the one that I was recommending with Kurt Jaimungal. There you go. Oh, one blue, one. Yeah. 3 blue, 1 brown. He's a mathematics education channel. Great channel. But I will tell you right away, don't get turned off. Like, it's beautiful and it's amazing, but a lot of this stuff will go over your head. He does pretty advanced math, but he simplifies it as much as he possibly can. And again, for some people who are very visual, this would make a lot more intuitive sense. And thank you so much, Ebony Toe and 3 blue, 1 brown. I would recommend 3 blue, 1 brown's 2 episodes that are very relevant to what we're doing. One is the Fourier transform episode he did, which was absolutely genius. And then the hologram video that he breaks down the math of holograms. It's amazing. Amazing evil icon. Kurt Jaimungal, baby. Great channel. Love that channel. Watch his conversation with Joshua Bach. Yasha Bach. We watched some of it on the members live. It's so great. And if you guys want to join our Discord, please do that. And I really want to see some suggestions for the next live. I definitely want to start implementing all the stuff we're talking about. I want to make sure that people really, participate and tell us what we want to talk about, what we want to break down. That's it. So I think we'll adjourn for tonight. Love you guys. If you want to follow me, across platforms, it'll be Danny Goller on TikTok and on Instagram. It'll be Goller Danny. Just swap them on X. LaserX83 on Twitch, and Dango Thoughts on YouTube. DANGO Thoughts on YouTube. Also, come join our members program on YouTube because it includes Zoom calls with me, weekly lives for members only, aside from the daily lives, and early access to all my content, and access to videos from my personal life that will only exist on YouTube Live and nowhere else. Tomorrow I'm gonna do the Eddie Bravo podcast. Should be a lot of fun, so I'll be able to talk about that after we're done. Love you all, guys. Thank you so much. Oh, Chris, thank you so much. Chris just gifted people 5 memberships. Appreciate you, Chris. Thank you so much. Thank you for the team. Ebony, Jessica, Chris, Carter, Irv, Bradley. Love you guys. I know I'm forgetting people. I'm always forgetting people. Nico, love you, my friend. And thank you so much for everybody who's showing up on a regular basis and making this community what it is. Sofa King and Guru and Sojik. I can't name you all, but love you guys. Thank you so much. Come join our chat and let's continue the conversation. Peace and love, everyone. Ciao. Have a good night, everyone.